Hi, I'm Naraya. On my 34th birthday, my sister raised a glass to toast my failure and handed me a t-shirt that called me our family biggest disappointment. Everyone laughed. My mother smiled. No one stopped her. But that wasn't the worst part. It wasn't just one dinner. It was years of being erased in silence, my name left off invitations, my voice cut from family videos. My father's will rewritten behind closed doors. What happens when your own blood tries to rewrite your story, page by page, and no one notices you're missing? Would you stay quiet? Or would you finally speak? Let me tell you what I did. I hadn't worn that blue dress in 3 years. It hung in the back of my closet, next to things that still carried his scent, my father's scent. He once told me, "You look like you're walking in your own sky in that." So I chose it tonight. For him, not for them. Charleston was still warm in the evenings, even in early fall. The streets glowed gold as I stepped out of the car and approached the Magnolia Room. It was the kind of place with starched napkins, slow jazz, and staff who greeted my mother by name. Amanda and Delora were already seated. Of course they were. Amanda in her pearl earrings and burgundy dress, the same color she insisted was family appropriate back when I wanted blue for Dad's memorial. Delora wore her polished smile, the kind she saved for church and photo ops. They each had a glass of champagne in hand and an audience of 4 other people I barely knew. "You're late," Amanda said, not even looking up from her phone. No hug, no warmth, just that familiar undercurrent of irritation dressed as civility. "I wasn't aware there was a schedule," I replied quietly, sliding into the empty chair they'd left for me. It was on the end, not quite included, not quite apart. I scanned the table. No sign of the cousins I grew up with, no friends from school, just family friends from Amanda's circle, mostly from her real estate firm or yoga group. Before I could ask about the guest list, Amanda tapped her glass with a fork. "Everyone," she began, standing with practiced poise. "I want to say a few words to honor my sister on her big day." The table quieted. Some smiled. Others looked at me with the kind of supportive sympathy you give a dog in a sweater. She raised her glass. "To my sister Naraya, who's always been exactly that herself." She paused for effect. "And tonight, we celebrate 34 years of trying. And failing beautifully." There was a ripple of chuckles, mostly polite, but real enough to sting. Amanda reached under the table and pulled out a white gift bag, handing it to me with exaggerated ceremony. "Go on," she said. "Open it. It's perfect for you." I glanced at my mother. Dolores' expression didn't move. A still frame in a photo no one asked to keep. I opened the bag and pulled out a neatly folded t-shirt. Soft cotton. Heather gray. Across the chest, in bold black letters. "Family's greatest disappointment. Sit. 1989. For a second, I couldn't feel my hands. Then the laughter came. Not from everyone. Just enough. One man actually clapped. I looked around. Faces turned away, trying not to meet mine. Amanda's grin widened. "I had it custom made," she said sweetly. "Figured if the label fits, I folded the shirt, carefully, like it might explode in my hands." "Is this a joke?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Amanda blinked innocently. "You always said you wanted something personal." I turned to Delora. My mother. The woman who used to brush my hair before school and say I had lion-hearted eyes. She didn't look upset. She looked resigned. "Oh, honey," she said, waving a hand. "It's just a little fun." Amanda has that dry humor. You know that. No one said anything after that. Not even a waiter. I pressed my hands into my lap and stared at the plate in front of me. Appetizers were being served. The shrimp smelled like lemon and heat and shame. I thought about standing up and leaving, but that would have just given them something else to say about me. Instead, I smiled. A tight, fractured thing. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the chandelier. It sparkled like judgment. I rewound everything in my mind. The invitation that didn't say birthday. The way Amanda insisted she'd handle everything. Dolores' words a week ago. "Just trust us this year." Trust. This wasn't a dinner. It was a setup. They didn't want to celebrate me. They wanted to display me, like a flawed vase in a cabinet good for pointing at, not for pouring anything into. I had become the joke. But here's the thing about being the punchline. People forget that sometimes you remember who held the mic. That thought echoed through me as I set the glass of water back on the table, hands steady despite the burn behind my ribs. I didn't cry. I didn't leave. I watched. Dolores stood up next, tapping her manicured fingers against her wine glass. "If I could have a moment," she said, voice soft but clear-hearsed. The room stilled again, like they were waiting for a queen to speak. "I just want to thank everyone for coming to support such an incredible milestone for this family," she began, her smile wide but only aimed at one side of the table. "We're so proud of Amanda, her accomplishments, her leadership, the way she continues to carry our family's name with grace." There was a pause for polite applause. She was top of her class, got her real estate license before 23, and now she's giving back through that amazing women's housing project. I waited for her to mention me. A sentence. A word. She didn't. No mention of my name. Not a single reference to it being my birthday. Just Amanda, Amanda, Amanda. I looked down at the place card in front of me. It just said, guest. I glanced up. A few people across the table gave me the kind of look you give someone who spilled red wine on white carpet. Not out of pity, more like discomfort. One woman smiled at me, then quickly looked away, fumbling for her fork. My throat tightened. I didn't speak. I didn't trust my voice to not shake. I scanned the table. Candles flickered, wine glasses clinked. Laughter resumed. Amanda leaned in, whispering something to the woman beside her, who let out a breathy laugh. Dolores sat back, sipping her wine, like she had just closed a real estate deal. It wasn't an accident. That realization didn't hit me like a wave, it came in pieces. I started remembering. Earlier that week, Eid received the invite in the mail. A thick ivory card with gold trim and cursive font that read, "A night to celebrate Amanda and family, hosted by Delora Trenholm." At the time, I assumed it was a mistake. Amanda's name taking center stage didn't surprise me, but I figured in family must have been their way of including me. Now, sitting here under that chandelier, under their gaze or lack of it, I understood. The invitation wasn't careless. It was curated. Even the title of the night didn't belong to me. I shifted in my seat, suddenly aware of how tight the bracelet around my wrist felt. It had Dad's cufflinks sewn into it, something he'd worked on for months. I remembered asking Delora about wearing it. "That's too rustic, dear," she'd said without even glancing at it. "Amanda will be wearing pearls. Let's not distract." I thought she meant it as a style suggestion. Looking back now, it was something else. Another small erasure. That's the thing with family. When they dim your light slowly, you don't notice you're in the dark until someone else is glowing too brightly in your place. I adjusted the bracelet. I wasn't going to take it off. Around that time, one of the waitstaff approached with a tray of desserts, mini key lime pies and chocolate tarts. I wasn't hungry, but I took one anyway. Just something to hold, something to do with my hands. A guest sitting across from me, someone I didn't recognize, leaned in with a smile that felt more forced than friendly. "Smile, dear," she said, tilting her head. "You don't want to look ungrateful." Ungrateful? I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, and started typing. Amanda's speech. 34 years of failing beautifully. Shirt, disappointment. No birthday mention in Dolores' toast. Invitation card or name, not mine. Mom laughed. Didn't stop her. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was cataloging. Naming things gives you power over them. That's something I'd learned early, when no one called what was happening in our house preference. They called it tradition. I added one more line to the note. When they strip your name from your own party, you take it back. I placed the phone down and looked at Amanda. She was mid-laugh, throwing her head back, gesturing with a spoon like it was a wand. I didn't hate her in that moment. I pitied her. People like her needed the spotlight like oxygen, and they suffocated anyone who might dim their shine. But I wasn't going to let them do that anymore, not without consequences. That was the moment I stopped asking for a seat at their table. By the time I got home, the storm had already started, one of those late-night Charleston tempests that hum quietly at first, like a warning, before turning loud enough to rattle windows. I stood inside the doorway for a moment, letting the silence of my apartment soften the ringing in my ears, left by the laughter at the restaurant. I set the gift bag down near the trash, but didn't throw it out. Not yet. The t-shirt was still folded inside, like it was waiting for one more punchline. My heels came off, hair pulled loose, lights dimmed. I moved slowly, not because I was tired, but because there was nowhere I needed to be except here, breathing inside my own space. I spotted the small card Amanda had tucked into my book when she handed me the gift. I opened it now, expecting I don't know what. Something. But it was a generic thinking of you cardone you could grab in bulk from any dollar store. No note, no signature, not even a happy birthday. I sat on the couch and flipped open the album a family friend had handed me on the way out of the restaurant. Just a few of our favorite memories, she'd said, cheerful and clueless. I turned the pages slowly. Barbecues, weddings, Christmas mornings. Then I stopped. It was a group shot from Thanksgiving last year, everyone gathered on the porch at Amanda's new house. The caption on the glossy page read, "The Trenholm Legacy." There I was, barely, cropped at the edge of the frame, only half of my face visible. Amanda and Delora were centered, surrounded by smiling relatives. Someone had looked at that photo and decided that the best version of the family didn't include me. And then they printed it, bound it, gifted it. I stared at the image for a long time before tearing the page from the binding, folding it in half, and slipping it into the drawer I'd labeled Things to Remember. I didn't add it out of sentiment. I added it the way you might file a receipt proof of purchase, in this case, of pain. I reached for a photo of Dad and me that sat on the bookshelf. It was from my 9th birthday. He had one arm around me, the other holding the kite we'd flown that day on Sullivan's Island. I set it beside the album, not to rewrite anything, but to balance the narrative. The rain started to hit harder. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and created a new folder. Evidence of erasure. I scanned the Thanksgiving photo, saving it under the name. Chapter 1. The edges they cut. And that's when the memory came back, full color, no warning. I was 10. It was supposed to be my birthday party. Balloons in the dining room, a homemade cake on the counter, candles set aside. I wore a floral dress I'd picked out myself, nothing fancy, but I liked the way it spun when I twirled. Delora had told me earlier in the week that there might be a change of plans. Amanda had won some award, another scholarship, maybe something for math, and there was a small ceremony they had to attend. She promised they'd be home before cake. I sat at the window and watched the rain blur the world outside. They didn't come back until after dark. The frosting had started to melt by then. The balloons were wilting. I hadn't cried. I just sat there. And eventually, I told myself that maybe they thought I wanted the house to myself. Maybe they figured I'd enjoy a quiet day more. That was the first time I remember choosing to believe a softer lie over a hard truth. Because when people disappear long enough, you learn to write them excuses. That's how self-erasure begins. Back in the present, I shut the album, stood up, and walked to the bookshelf again. I took down another framed picture, this one of Amanda, Delora, and me from 5 years ago. A rare photo where we were all smiling. I looked at it for a few seconds, then set it face down in a drawer. The photo with Dad stayed out. My phone buzzed. A voicemail. It was from Lauren, an old friend from college I hadn't spoken to in months. Her voice was soft, hesitant. "Hey, I saw some pictures from tonight. I didn't realize they were still doing that to you. If you want to talk or just sit on the phone in silence, I'm around. You shouldn't be alone." I didn't call her back. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. I texted her instead. I'm not alone. I'm finally seeing things clearly. Then I powered down the screen, let the rain do its thing, and sat in the quiet of my apartment, not trying to be anyone's idea of who I should have been. They didn't forget my birthday when I was 10. They just chose something else to celebrate. By Monday morning, the storm had passed, both outside and in my chest. I poured myself a lukewarm cup of break room coffee and tried to act like it was just another school day. My classroom was quiet, the walls still covered in crayon art and multiplication tables, as if nothing had happened over the weekend. But something had shifted. I didn't need a calendar to feel it. I stopped in the staff lounge for a refill between classes, hoping to get a few moments of quiet. That's when Cheryl, the art teacher, called me over. She was scrolling on her phone, her brows pulled together. "Hey, Naraya, I wasn't sure if you saw this." She turned the screen toward me. Instagram. Amanda, sitting across from Zachme, ex from a table at a bistro I recognized. 2 wine glasses, a single candle, and the caption, "When old friends become new beginnings, AT." My throat didn't tighten. My eyes didn't sting. Instead, something inside me simply went still. Zach was the one who once said, "Your sister's too manicured to be real." He used to laugh when Amanda walked into a room like she was being filmed. He said I was the only one who didn't try to be someone else. I nodded to Cheryl, thanked her, and walked away without explaining. What was I going to say? I sat in my car during lunch and opened Zach's contact on my phone. Just stared at it. Thought about calling, about asking why or when or how long. But I didn't. I remembered Amanda saying, years ago, "Don't worry. I would never touch someone you've dated. That would be gross." She'd said it like it was beneath her. Apparently, that bar had lowered. I hovered over the call button, then hit delete instead. She doesn't take what she wants. She takes what I have. Not because she needs it, because I had it first. That evening, I kicked off my shoes, left my bag on the counter, and sat down at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop to check my school email. That's when I saw it forwarded from a coworker. A family newsletter from Delora. Subject line, "Thank you for celebrating Amanda." I clicked it open. "Dear friends and family," it read, "thank you for attending our celebration of Amanda's amazing journey. Her accomplishments continue to inspire us. We are so proud of her leadership, her grace, and her legacy." My name wasn't mentioned, not once. Not happy birthday to Naraya. Not our youngest daughter. Just Amanda, Amanda, Amanda. The same way she'd been lifted, he'd been scrubbed out. I sat there staring at the screen, not blinking, not moving. It wasn't just forgetting. This was curated. They weren't ignoring me. They were replacing me. I opened a blank email, addressed it to myself. Subject line, Exhibit B public messaging. I pasted the newsletter into the body, highlighted every line that praised Amanda, added one comment. When the world sees what they see, they think I wasn't even invited. Because that's the goal. I saved it as a draft. Later that night, I checked Amanda's Instagram again. I shouldn't have, but I did. There was a new post. It was a carousel 6 glossy shots from the party. The tablescape. Amanda holding a glass of champagne. Her posing with Delora. In the last photo, the family gathered around her. I wasn't in the frame. I read the caption. "Family is everything, and am blessed to be surrounded by those who truly love me." Underneath, a comment from someone I didn't recognize. "That dinner was amazing. Didn't know you had a sister?" Amanda's reply? Just a red heart emoji. I stared at it. Not surprised. Not even mad. I took a screenshot, saved it in the same folder. You don't get to edit people out of your life and still call yourself authentic. But Amanda does. She makes it look effortless. I closed the laptop and turned out the light. But something in me was wide awake. I was done explaining my existence to people who erased it so elegantly. 2 mornings later, I was sitting at my desk, grading vocabulary quizzes, when an email landed in my inbox. No subject, no preview. It had been forwarded by Jill, an old mutual from Amanda's world who hadn't picked a side yet. I clicked it without much thought, figuring it was junk. But when I read the thread, I stopped mid-sentence. A sharp click in my chest replaced my breath. It was a message from Amanda to the event planner dated 3 days before the party. "Let's keep Naraya's mic time short," she wrote. "She tends to spiral and cry. It gets uncomfortable. This is a celebration. Let's not weigh it down." Underneath, the planner responded, "Understood. Well, prioritize Amanda's segment and tighten the flow." I didn't move. I read it 3 times, once aloud, the words tasting like rust. This wasn't about oversight. It was containment. I hadn't embarrassed the family by existing, embarrassed them by speaking. That night, I sat on the floor of my living room with my laptop open. I pulled up the official video Amanda had posted to her company's Facebook page. It opened with a wide shot of the venue, a voiceover, hers of course, praising family and tradition. Then came the toast, her exaggerated laugh, the fake tears. The camera panned to the guests, to Delora smiling like a pageant coach. Then champagne. Then applause. No speech from me. I had stood in that room and taken the mic and said real things about legacy and love and Dad, and it had been erased. I watched it again, just to be sure. Then I hit screen record, saved the file as proof of narrative control.mp4, tucked it next to the Instagram screenshots and the forwarded emails, a digital museum of manipulation. I sat there a moment longer, eyes on the screen, heart oddly steady. Then I closed the lid and stood. I didn't plan the visit. The next afternoon, I left work at 3:15, drove through traffic without music, parked across from Amanda's brokerage downtown. I walked in without an appointment, nodded at the receptionist when she said Amanda was in a meeting, and waited. The door to the glass conference room was partially open. Amanda was inside, seated at the head of the table, gesturing at a slide about branding for modern women. She saw me. "I need 5 minutes," I said. Not loud, not angry, just final. Amanda's jaw stiffened. She looked at the others in the room. "Let's break here. Take 10. The others shuffled out, a few glancing back with the kind of curiosity that rises when people sense a storm coming, but don't know who will get struck first. I stepped in. Shut the door gently. "You can finish this later," I said, "but we're going to finish this now." Amanda crossed her arms, leaned against the table. "What exactly do you want, Naraya?" "What you took," I said plainly. "My voice, my place, my name back." She scoffed. "You always make everything heavier than it needs to be." "No, you make it palatable so you can keep the applause. But I remember what I said at that dinner, and now I know why no one else will." She looked at me like I was a puzzle missing too many pieces. "It's not my fault you can't handle the spotlight. You make people uncomfortable. I just protect the room." I smiled. "Just a little." "No. You protect the story. The one where you're the hero and I'm the footnote." Her face twitched. I reached into my bag and pulled out a copy of my full speech printed, stapled, labeled. "Here's what you edited out. I've already posted it on my page and shared it with the people who matter." Amanda didn't reach for it. She just stared. "You don't get to decide how I'm remembered anymore," I continued. "That power's gone." "Are you threatening me?" she asked, arms still crossed, but voice thinner now. I tilted my head. "I'm informing you. The next move is yours. Make sure you're proud of it, because I'm keeping receipts." I turned and left before she could find something to say. She didn't stop me. She didn't say a word as I walked out, but her silence was louder than anything she'd ever posted. I left Amanda's office and drove home with the windows down. The late afternoon breeze didn't soften anything. I didn't want soft. I wanted clear. I wanted silence that wasn't manipulative, wasn't polished into social media captions or twisted into family statements. Just silence that let me think. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, the mailboxes near the leasing office had just been refilled. I checked mine, mostly junk. But one folded copy of the local paper caught my eye. Not something I subscribed to, but Delora had always insisted everyone should support local news. Page 4. There she was. Trenholm Daughter Sponsors. educational grant in late father's name. There was a full paragraph about Amanda's philanthropic heart, the donation amount, the organization's gratitude. Right below it, a quote from her. "This grant is a reflection of the values our father instilled in us. The amount, $5,000. That exact figure hit me like a door slamming. I walked inside, dropped the rest of the mail, and opened my laptop. Searched my inbox. Scrolled back 4 months. There it was, confirmation of an anonymous donation I made in memory of Dad. I'd transferred the money from a small inheritance I kept separate. The receipt was still there. The code, the name, everything. I clicked over to the Community Foundation's website. Under founding sponsor, Amanda Trenholm. Not anonymous, not in partnership with the Dunley family, just her. I took a deep breath. My fingers didn't shake. I opened a new browser tab and found the Foundation's contact form. "Hi," I typed. "I'm the original donor for the $5,000 scholarship listed under Amanda Trenholm's name. I have the transfer code and confirmation. Please correct the public attribution or remove Amanda's name. Simple, direct, no anger, just accountability." I attached the receipt and hit send. Afterward, I made tichamomel, which I didn't particularly like, but it kept my hands busy. I sat down at the kitchen table and reached for the old smartwatch I barely used anymore. I'd left it charging in the corner after the birthday dinner, not thinking much of it. I tapped through the menu. The audio logs were still there, recording from the night of the party. Automatically logged in 5-minute chunks. 8:47 p.m. I clicked play. First, ambient clinking of glasses. Muffled conversations. Then Amanda's voice, whispering low but unmistakable. "If she flips out, she'll look unstable. Either way, we win." A pause. Then Dolores' familiar cadence, laced with disdain. "She always overreacts. That's the real problem." Silence again. Then laughter. Not mean. Worse casual. I paused the recording, sat in the dark for a full minute. No tears, no shaking. Just cold, clean comprehension. They weren't reacting to my emotions. They were provoking them, and then framing them as weakness. I renamed the file, strategicsabotage.wave. I opened the folder on my computer where I'd been storing the screenshots, the newsletters, the edited video. I added the audio file and the donation email. Then I zipped the whole thing and uploaded it to a secure drive titled "Truth in Case I Disappear." That wasn't drama. That was clarity. I locked it with the phrase my father used to write at the bottom of every note he left for me growing up. "Your name means something when you guard it." I closed the lid of my laptop and leaned back in the chair. They wanted me silent. Now I had a voice louder than both of theirs proof. The following afternoon, I was folding laundry with a level of focus that felt like survival, each towel a distraction, each sock a small act of control. The buzzy silence in my apartment was broken by a call from a number I hadn't saved but recognized instantly. "Hi, sweetheart," came the voice. "Rowena." My aunt never called for small talk. She barely called at all. "I've been sitting with something for a while," she said. "And after what I saw this week, I can't keep it to myself anymore." I sat down on the edge of the couch, towel half folded in my lap. "Your father's life insurance, it wasn't supposed to go just to Amanda." I closed my eyes, already feeling the edge of something coming undone. "He filled out paperwork before he passed," she continued. "Split it down the middle. He even told me he wrote a handwritten note in case Delora tried to change it." There was a pause, then her voice softened. "She redirected it, Naraya. All of it. Amanda's house, the one they say she worked so hard to afford it, was bought outright. With your father's money. I didn't ask why she hadn't said something sooner. I already knew. Families like ours didn't break the rules. We bent them quietly, with good posture and polite smiles. Silence was currency, and my father's name had been traded without my consent." That evening, I drove to Rowena's house in the historic part of town. Her porch light was already on, casting a soft glow over the ivy climbing her banister. Inside, the house smelled like lemon polish and thyme. She had the file ready, Thick manila folder, my father's name written neatly in black ink across the front. Inside was the policy draft, unsigned but dated. A copy of the handwritten letter. "Shall deny this if it goes public," Rowena warned. "But it's real. And he meant for you to have it." I held the paper like it might fall apart in my hands. "And they buried this with him," I whispered. Rowena didn't correct me. She just handed me an envelope. "For whatever you do next." On my way home, I stopped at a red light near the Battery. My phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Amanda had posted again. It was another family photo, this time cropped so tightly you'd think we'd only ever had 3 relatives. The caption read, "Some of us grow up, some of us just grow bitter." Over 200 likes. Delora had commented, "So proud of the way you rise. That did it. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone across the car like someone in a movie." I drove home, made tea, and opened my laptop. I created a folder titled Narrative versus Truth. Inside it, I dropped the full video of my birthday speech, the scanned insurance documents, the email Amanda wrote about keeping my mic time short, the voice recording from my watch. If she flips out, she'll look unstable. And now, this post. The latest erasure. I opened Facebook, then Instagram. Then my blog still half active, mostly dormant since Dad's death. I posted on all 3. You don't get to rewrite a life that's still being lived. You don't get to rename my grief, repurpose my silence, or crop me out of my own bloodline. Here's my name back. Attached to it, screenshots, scans, video files. I clicked publish and closed the laptop. It took 30 minutes. The first text came from a cousin in Florida. "Girl, you broke the internet." The second was an email from a lawyer representing Amanda's firm, warning about defamation and breach of privacy. And the third, from someone I hadn't expected, my old piano teacher. "You always were the one telling the truth, even when it cost you. Bravo." I poured myself another cup of tea. I didn't break anything. I just stopped lying. By Sunday morning, the notifications had slowed, but the ache hadn't. I hadn't slept much, just drifted in and out, staring at the ceiling as if it could spell something out I hadn't yet figured. I made coffee, black and bitter, and stood barefoot on the cold kitchen tile while the pot hissed behind me. That's when I remembered the old storage bin tucked in the corner of the hall closet, the one I hadn't touched since I moved into this place. It held what was left of my father's home office, packed after he died, and kept sealed since. I carried the box to the living room and set it down gently like it might still carry his breath. Among old tax folders and receipts yellowed by time, I found a flash drive in a plastic sleeve. Labeled in his handwriting, "Silas Trust Final Docs." I turned it in my hand. My name was written on the other side. Back at my desk, I plugged it in. Inside, a folder of letters, 1 video file, and a spreadsheet. The letters were dated a month before he passed. Notes to Delora, to Rowena, to me. But it was the spreadsheet that grabbed my throat. A breakdown of loans, repayments, and totals. I stared at the final line. Debt repaid by Naraya, 27th Reis, Sheen 6143. I had done that quietly, piecing together payments from my teaching salary, covering the mortgage while Amanda got back on her feet, taking over utilities when Mom said the estate was in limbo. I clicked open the video file. The screen went black for a second. Then my father appeared, seated in his old den, wearing the cardigan I always teased him about. "If you're watching this," he said gently, "then you've had to find something the hard way." "I'm sorry." He looked down, collected his thoughts, then back at the camera. "Amanda will always be loud. She'll fill a room before she's even stepped in. And that's not bad. That's just who she is. But Naraya, you've always been the one who listened first. You held the house together while the rest of us pulled it in opposite directions. Don't let your quiet be mistaken for absence." I covered my mouth. Not to stop crying, I wasn't. I just didn't know where to put the sound. I saved the video, added it to the folder. At noon, I opened another document on the drive. A draft of my father's will unsigned, but detailed. Assets split equally between Amanda and me. Then a scanned note in his handwriting. Dolores says Amanda will make the most of it. But what about the one who already has? The official will on file, the one Delora had handled, didn't match this. Not even close. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. Instead, I searched for a local estate attorney with good reviews, emailed her my name, asked for a Monday consultation. At 6:45 that evening, my phone buzzed with a group message from Delora. Emergency family meeting tonight. 8 p.m. Our house. No explanation, just location. I showed up last. Amanda was already there, arms folded, eyes narrowed, flanked by 2 aunts and a family friend who probably thought they were about to mediate a dispute over holiday decorations. Delora stood near the fireplace, her hands clasped in front of her like she was announcing a church bake sale. I walked in holding the flash drive. "I won't take long," I said. Delora started to speak. I held up a finger. No interruptions. I walked over to the smart TV, connected my laptop, and hit play. Dad's face filled the screen. "If you're watching this," Amanda's eyes twitched. Delora blinked but said nothing. I let it play to the end. The room was still when the screen went black. I looked at them all. Then at Amanda. "You don't have to explain. You don't even have to respond. But I need you to understand one thing, this version of the family, the one where I'm the backup plan or the silent partner, it doesn't exist anymore." Delora stepped forward. "Naraya, that video is outdated." "It doesn't matter," I interrupted, calm. "Because the paperwork says it does. Because my name says it does." Amanda scoffed. "You think a flash drive changes anything?" "No," I replied, walking toward the door. "But it makes sure the truth is louder than your version." She shook her head. "You can't rewrite the past." I turned to her one last time. "No. But I can stop letting you write mine." I left before anyone else could speak. And for the first time in my life, I left a family meeting without needing to be forgiven for simply existing. The next 2 weeks moved like molasses, thick and quiet and steady. No statements from Amanda, no frantic messages from Delora, just silence, which for once wasn't terrifying. It was restorative. I moved into the new apartment the following Monday, just a modest 1-bedroom on the edge of the school district, close enough to walk if my car ever died. Clean walls, a working heater, and a little patch of balcony that faced nothing in particular. But it was mine. No inherited antiques, no family portraits, just space. That first morning, I woke up before the sun, not because of stress, but because I wanted to. The air smelled like black coffee and new beginnings. I moved through the kitchen barefoot, dragging my fingers along the edge of the counter, savoring the stillness. On the fridge, I'd pinned a photo of my dad. Not the polished one from his obituary, but a candid he was sitting on the back porch in jeans, flipping through a newspaper, his dog curled at his feet. The kind of photo no one thought to frame. The kind that felt real. By 8 a.m., I was at my new office, if you could call it that. It was a shared room at a community center where Eid recently started volunteering as a counselor for youth kicked out of traditional school systems. Kids who were labeled too difficult, too angry, too emotional. The kind of kids no one had time for. The kind I understood too well. That afternoon, during our first group circle, a boy named Miles, barely 13, arms crossed, hoodie pulled up, spoke up after 30 minutes of silence. "Miss D," he said, not looking at me. "Did you ever feel like your family didn't see you?" I didn't answer right away. The room went still. I watched the other kids shift in their chairs, waiting for me to deny it, to gloss it over like adults do. "Yes," I said finally. "Yes, I did." Miles nodded like he'd expected that. "But I also learned," I continued, "that sometimes it's not that they don't see you. It's that you grew bigger than the version of you they were comfortable with." He looked at me then, not with pity, just curiosity, the kind that might turn into trust. That night, I took a long walk through the marsh trails near my apartment. I left my phone behind. No headphones. just wind and the distant hum of frogs and crickets. The tide was in, brushing the edges of the wooden walkway. I hadn't heard from Amanda, not since the meeting, but I'd seen her Instagram slowly shift. A few comments turned off, a few photos archived. Her followers still praised her. That was fine. I didn't need their applause. Dolores' profile was gone entirely. No proud mother bio. No garden photos. Just deleted. The silence that once meant erasure now felt like choice. And I chose it. 3 days later, a plain envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, and my father, standing in front of a science fair project I had long forgotten. I was 8. He had his arm around me, smiling like the sun was behind my eyes. On the back, in his handwriting, "You are seen, even when they act blind." There was no note, but I didn't need one. I knew who had sent it, and I knew why. I slipped the photo into a frame, placed it beside the fridge. A quiet reminder, not of what was lost, but of what never left. The next Sunday, I walked the marsh trail again. This time, I brought the USB. It was still in my coat pocket, still holding every email, every video, every document. I stood at the edge of the water and looked at it for a long time. The light hit it just right, like a little silver truth. I tossed it. Not hard, not angry, just enough to let it go. It landed with a soft splash and sank out of sight. The ripples faded quickly. The birds didn't even stir. "It served its purpose," I said aloud to no one. "I don't need it anymore." And I didn't. I didn't win. I didn't lose. I just stopped playing the role they wrote for me. Before I wrap this story, I want to speak directly to you, heart to heart. If you've made it this far, you know this wasn't just a story about a sister or a family dinner gone wrong. It was about something deeper, something many of us quietly carry. Being erased, overlooked, or reduced to the quiet one in the family is not just painful, it's dehumanizing. But here's what I've learned. Your silence is not a weakness. It can be your strength. And your voice, when you decide to use it, can shift the room. You don't need a dramatic ending to reclaim your place. Sometimes healing is quiet. Sometimes justice looks like peace. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do is choose yourself without apology, without spectacle. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like someone else was writing your story for you? And what did it take for you to take the pen back? If this story touched something in you, if it made you think of your own family, your own journey, or even your own silence, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from, or just drop a 1 if it hit home. And if it didn't resonate, that's okay too. I'd still love to hear your thoughts, what you disagreed with, what you wanted more of, what your truth looks like. We're building something here, a space for real stories, real voices, and real healing. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, raw, real, and rooted in life, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Hit that bell so you won't miss the next one. I promise I've got more to share. Thanks for spending your time with me. I don't take it lightly. Your story matters too. Let's keep telling them together.